influence on climate is clear. Let's take a look at some of that evidence. Climates across the globe are changing, and the changes that we're observing are consistent with one another. For example, as we see that the global change in temperature is increasing, we're seeing a retreat of mountain glaciers. Let's take a look at the glacier on Mount Kilimanjaro. This example shows the aerial coverage of the glacier from the early 20th century to the early 21st century, demonstrating the decreasing size of the glacier. Other mountain glaciers are also retreating. Arctic sea ice is also changing. The Arctic sea ice has thinned by 40% in recent decades. In late summer and early autumn, it's decreased in extent by 10% to 15% since the 1950s. You can clearly see that the amount of the sea ice is decreasing with time. As might be expected with a warming climate, the northern hemisphere snow cover is decreasing with time. There is a clear indication that it has decreased in aerial extent by 10% since the 1960s. As the oceans warm, the water expands and increases sea level. This graph shows the cumulative changes in sea level for the world's oceans since 1880. It's based on a combination of long-term tide gauge measurements and recent satellite observations. When averaged over all the world's oceans, absolute sea level has increased at an average rate of 0.06 inches per year from 1880 to 2012. However, since 1993, the average sea level rise has increased to a rate of 0.1 inches per year. In Wisconsin, as this map shows, the length of the growing season, or the period between the last frost in spring and the first frost in the fall, has lengthened as much as 4 weeks since 1950. Many people in the Great Lakes regions have noticed that lake ice has decreased over time. The duration of ice cover on lakes has decreased by about 2 weeks over the 20th century for high latitudes in the northern hemispheres. Scientists have been studying the lakes of Madison since the 1850s, and this figure shows the total duration of one of those lakes, Lake Monona, documenting the shorter ice coverage on these lakes over the period of record. So those are just some of the changes that we're observing. And these changes are occurring on the global scale, the regional scale, and the local scale. These changes are a consequence of increased greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. A greenhouse gas is transparent to solar radiation and yet absorbs infrared radiation emitted by the Earth, resulting in a warming of the atmosphere. Two important greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide and methane. Both of these gases are emitted during human activities. Fossil fuel combustion and cement production are the primary things that humans do to increase the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. This figure shows the concentrations of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere from hundreds of thousands of years ago through 2013, measured in parts per million, or ppm. The data comes from a variety of historical ice core studies, as well as recent air monitoring sites around the world. It's clear that in modern times, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is greater than anything observed over the last 800,000 years. Methane is the second most prevalent greenhouse gas emitted by human activities in the United States. This primarily comes from raising livestock and leakages in gas pipes. As with carbon dioxide, we can see from this figure that over the past 800,000 years, the modern times concentration of methane is far greater than what we've seen previously. So what does increasing greenhouse gases mean? Well, the United Nations established the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change to explore the relationships between increases in greenhouse gases, climate change, and its risks to society. This consists of hundreds of scientists who have looked at many thousands of publications on these issues. And they issue reports 5 so far since the 1990s, that talk about the risks and the influences of human activities on climate change. In 1995, the report said the following: the balance of evidence suggests a discernible human influence on global climate. As we gathered more evidence, however, in 2014, the UN report from the IPCC states the following: it is extremely likely, a 95 to 100% chance, that human influence was the dominant cause of global warming between 1951 and 2010. This points out two important things. First, that scientists are very skeptical, and we increase our confidence on conclusions as we gather more evidence. And the second is that climate change is real, and that humans are contributing to it, and we need to be addressing it. The United States also issues its own reports on climate change. And one of the key takeaways from the 2014 National Climate Assessment is that the Great Lakes regions on a per capita basis has more emissions than the national average. That provides us a nice opportunity to change the amount of emissions